How do you feel being a part of the podcast world? Do you feel like you're like a beneficial force, you know?
I feel like I am contributing to the detriment of society a little bit, but
maybe you're one of the good ones, though. Well, I feel like as long as you're bringing like a positive, you have a lot of things in your corner. I feel like you're doing music, which is, in my opinion, usually net positive.
I think so.
Usually.
Usually.
And if you're picking people that you like and you're being earnest about it,
yeah,
like I gotta believe that's positive, you know?
Thank you. I am being earnest about it. It is genuinely like kind of started as an excuse for me to like bring people in that
that's sick.
I just like their music a lot.
That's cool.
Yeah.
No, that's like what you should do, I feel like.
Thank you. Sick. I will say it's been really hard this entire time to not start singing Joel Roberts under my breath. My girlfriend has been walking around the house going, my name, literally
that's so funny.
For days on end.
That's sick.
She like sent me that video and I was like, I've got great news for you.
Dude, I think it's kind of catchy. I don't know, because it's become a thing. So. I didn't realize, like, it's funny. I was like, do you know the Bruce Springsteen EP Nebraska?
I know of it.
So there's like, do you know like the lore?
I'm from New Jersey, but I am not up on my Bruce Springsteen lore.
Should be. They're gonna get mad at you.
Okay.
No, but I love Bruce Springsteen, and it's like the Nebraska thing is like he made it on like a tape machine, and it's like cool. Super like lo-fi and everything. But he has this song called Highway Patrolman, and the first line is "My name is Joe Roberts," and I always thought it was Joel, and I love Bruce Springsteen so much.
I hear that for you.
I was like, I gotta make like a story song, and then that was how I got that line, and I just thought Joel was. I just always thought it was Joel, so I went with Joel.
Yeah.
And then, something about the line people like say it at me all the time, you know?
I had a really hard time not doing it.
It's sick. Like,
because I'm just always singing under my breath and I'm like about to start doing it. I'm like, you can't do that right now.
Dude, no, I have the same thing actually, like for sure when I'm with my friends who make music, like it's so hard to not start singing their song because it's so funny. Like it always lands. For me?
It lands for you, but then for that person, it's like, what the fuck are you supposed to say?
Well, especially if there's somebody who's like really takes it like maybe, I don't know, not too serious, but just maybe really serious. And then they're like kind of offended because they're like, this isn't like, it's not a...
That's my fucking craft.
Yeah, it's not a bit. Like this is fucking real. Which I agree. Like I feel the same way, but I also can appreciate that it's like kind of funny.
It's kind of, I get trolled now too with my own music. And I don't know what to do with it. So
how much music? I'm not hip to your music, and I wish I was.
And that's okay.
No, I mean I'll go check it out. So is it under your name?
Yeah, it is. That's sweet. I've only put out 3 songs, so it's
sick.
Tiny baby.
No, that's cool.
Yeah.
You have an EP coming out though.
I have an EP coming out.
When's it coming
out? My boss
loves
loves to plug that like randomly.
As you should. That's cool.
It's very nice of him. It's coming out February 7th.
Sweet.
But I have the first song I put out, the line of the chorus is, you say you love how my hands are so soft, and people sing that at me a lot, which is really uncomfortable.
Yeah. That's a pretty intimate one.
It's a lot for like my mom to be singing at me. That's like kind of crazy.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
No, that's pretty real.
But my name is Joel Roberts has definitely been on the mind.
Dude, people ask me all the time. Okay, a couple things. I've now met a few real Joel Roberts.
Oh, awesome.
Who are like the other crazy one, and this is actually kind of serious, is there's people who reach out that have like been through what the song is about.
Okay.
And I was writing it. Obviously, not obviously, but I don't know anybody who's done that because it's like this really, it's like a really intense story.
It is.
So to hear people come out and be like, this really happened to me, like, thank you for writing it, was like insane.
Ooh.
I was like, whoa.
That's
it really
heavy
made it
too.
real, you know what I mean?
Because you're like, oh, I'm writing this fictional story, and someone's like, yeah, that's my life.
Yeah. And I was like, because I was trying to think about like what would be, I mean, it started to me as like one of the like a very guiltless way to kill somebody, because I think that like I have this thing, like my favorite phrase, not really, but it's like, it depends, you know? It depends.
Yeah.
Blanket statements are tough. Generalizations are dangerous. You
I
end
agree.
up saying things and it gets taken out of context and it's bad. And it's like, there's a time and a place to like take justice into your own hands. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
There's not a lot of time. Honestly, it's not very frequent.
Yeah.
But I think but it exists. And so like, I was trying to think about what situation that would be where it's like, this guy's doing something that is like completely just, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I would do it again, kind of being the theme. But like, it's obviously violent and like all that stuff. So, but to hear somebody having gone through that is insane.
That is wild.
It was sobering. I was like,
yeah,
whoa.
that like really brings you back into the reality.
I take a really intense responsibility when it comes to like being a musician, honestly. Maybe more than I even like need to, but I think it just comes because I like really love music. Like I don't really watch movies or TV or anything. Like the way that I interact with like the media of the world is definitely music. And so for me, it's like, I think it's like super important. Like it shaped how I see the world. So if I'm gonna say something, I'm gonna like say it knowing that some kid might like listen to this and be like, this is like how I see the world now.
Yeah.
Because that's happened to me. So it's like,
I think that's really real. Like the music I found when I was like 11, 12 is still what shapes my perspective on the world. So
for sure.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn. I love how we got right down to it. I have yet to introduce the podcast. So I shall. Hi, this is Once to Watch Chef's Choice. I'm Abby Kenna, and today I'm joined by Truman Sinclair.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here and for just being philosophical immediately.
I don't know.
That was awesome. I had to bring up Joel Roberts, but I would love to know, if listeners had never heard your music before, I want to know what the appetizer to you is, what the first song you would want them to listen to is.
Well, this is a really hard question, honestly, because I had a band before this project, so I have so much music out, so it's hard for me. But I'm gonna have to go with what I think somebody should listen to just right now, I guess, right?
Okay.
So I'm gonna go with my song "Black Train."
Okay.
Because I just put it out, also.
30 grain signs, blind, beaten, broad eyes now. Tell me your secrets, you've got all of mine.
Sorry.
Shameless self-promo.
No, but I think that it's I think when I put out, because we were just talking about Joel Roberts, like I think when I put that out, to me that song is like an outlier on the album, but it ended up being the one that we put out first, and like I think a lot of people just gravitated to it because like we were talking about, like it's like sort of catchy and sort of like it's kind of funny when you take it out of context, and I get that, and so we put it out first, and like I think that when I put out the song "Black Train," which is the one that I'm choosing as my appetizer, it sort of frames it better, and I think it makes it make more sense, and so I think that that's why I picked that song. For me, the song "Black Train" is very, I mean, the whole album I was trying to be as honest as possible, and I honestly think that's really difficult for anybody. Like I think it takes a lot of thought to be honest. There's a quote like, I only achieve simplicity with enormous effort. Like you really have I don't know who said that, but someone awesome, maybe. And it's like you really have to try to say what you mean a lot of the time. And I think that I like to think that I got there on a lot of these songs, and I think Black Train's one of those. Like I think I was able to be really transparent on it, and so I'd pick that one, I think, because I think it's a good I think it like is a good way to get into what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I feel like that's a very valiant effort to be so intentionally honest with music, especially in LA. I think we live in such like a session writing community where just lyrics sometimes are written to finish a song rather than to say what you mean or to say something you believe in. And I think meaning and like catchiness have sort of gone away
so
from
hard.
each other.
I have lots of thoughts about the session writing thing.
I'm really not into it. I tried to do that whole thing and I couldn't. I think we might be very similar in the way that like I like really like each line has to mean something to me, and that's the kind of music I gravitate towards when I'm listening to. So I like that, like even though Joel Roberts is like maybe like the streaming song that like people find you through, Black Train is the one that you would want them to like know you through.
I think so. I think that if like, because I think most things are a spectrum, right? Like if the music that I'm making is on a spectrum, like Black Train's just much more towards the middle. Like I just think Joel Roberts is like definitely representative of a piece of who I am, but I just think Black Train is like more like down, like more of like who I am, I guess, honestly.
Yeah.
So
well, tell me about the story of that song. And
well, Black Train was about the climate crisis. Yeah, I think that it's the most pressing issue that we have to deal with, and I think it's being largely ignored, and I think it's a real shame, and I think that it's such a terrifying reality that I think if you're really gonna, and it's such a big problem that if you're gonna do anything about it, I think we really have to come together about it. And I also think that the song is pretty political to me also. It's kind of a tongue twister in the chorus, and I think that sometimes makes people miss what I'm trying to say, but maybe that's for the best, because I like to think that if you get a catchy enough chorus, you can have people sing whatever you want them to sing because they just don't even know what they're saying.
That's
you know what I mean?
really true.
And so I think that it's really about like politicians, in my opinion. I don't think any of them say what I want to say. Like I don't hear my own words, and almost and not there's definitely some, but like most of the time they're not talking about what I think we should be talking about at all. And it's like, and I also feel like we're being spied on and everything, and I just feel like we're just being kind of hung out to dry.
Yeah.
And then the issues that we all agree on don't get talked about. And that's what I wrote the song about. And I also feel like an old man talking about this stuff, which is why it starts with tapping that wooden cane, because I get that I'm kind of being like preachy and like all this stuff, but I
Sure.
just couldn't help but like get into it. And yeah, so that's basically what the song is about. I think that the Black Train thing, you know, the Woody Guthrie song, Little Black Train, coming around the band.
Love it.
Yeah. I just think that's really interesting. That song is so great. You know, you can't take it with you when the train comes around again or something. It might not be that, but it's like you can't take anything with you when you die. Like your impact here is greater than like your material possessions. And I think that we definitely have a culture that parts of the culture definitely highlight just like what you have and all your material things. And I think that if you can actually live your life and make some kind of genuine positive impact for the people that are going to come next and like, you know, help the chain instead of hurt the chain. And like, cause it's like, we're just here for like a blip. And I feel like if you're just going to spend that blip, like getting a bunch of bread, like some kind of loser, that sucks. And it's like, what is it really about? Is that why you're doing it? Or is it maybe to like get some kind of positive impact? And I think they were honestly, it's almost a blessing we have this big problem because you have a way to make a positive impact. It's not like you're just like trying to do something good and then you get like duped and then you're actually not doing something good and you've been like this is a very, in my opinion, a very clear issue that is like, if you can make a positive impact on this, like it feels like one of the rare things that feels like objectively good. Like that's a good thing to do. So to have a compass like that I think is maybe important for our generation. I think we could walk towards that kind of.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. The compass. I feel like we walk a very fine line for some people of like feeling helpless and hopeless about the state of the world. And then the other part of the population that feels like we can still contribute something. And I think honestly, apathy is like the killer. Like if you're just like, oh, it's done. Well, then it's done. Yeah.
Yeah. And
because no one's contributing anymore.
And it's just lame.
Yeah.
You tell me you just want to like sit down about it. That's lame. Even if it is helpless, wouldn't you rather try like on the real, you know?
100%. Yeah.
Sorry, it just makes me feel like that just kind of pisses me off when people are like, "There's nothing you could do, man. Like we're just gonna watch the world burn and do nothing about it." It's like,
no, I'm with you because even like at the end of my life, if I knew that everything I had worked towards was actually helpless in the end and I didn't change anything, I would feel better knowing that I had tried.
For sure.
Or that I felt good about myself. Like even if it's just that small of a thing.
Yeah, and you can feel good about like, you know, if you're at all spiritual about anything like that, it's like. That's good work for your soul, like trying to do something good and like trying to like straighten yourself out and like find some kind of truth and then push that ball forward in a way is like, that's just good for you, I think.
Yeah.
So it's better than doing nothing, you know? You don't want to be somebody who does nothing.
Anything is better than nothing.
Yeah, for sure.
Totally. I think that's a great song to enter people into your world.
Sweet.
Both like conceptually and sonically. It's funny you mentioned Woody Guthrie because you definitely have that both like sort of perspective, like a little bit of a political perspective on most of the things you write, and also just like the storytelling aspect, but also like the folk sound. Like it's not just folk, it's like something more than that. Like I hear the Bruce Springsteen too, which is cool. But I'm curious as we're going into album era, both what a song would be to represent this era and sort of like the sonic perspective of where things are headed and like what you're inspired by.
Well, so this is my main course,
This
right?
is your main course.
Okay. So I'm going to go with my song, Chicago Flood.
Awake in the middle of the night. You don't mind, I do looking to fight. We could ride through the Badlands or ride under burnout bridges, alright.
So I was saying, like, I have like all these different old projects, and I've made a bunch of music with a bunch of different people under a bunch of different names. So I feel like I have a bunch of different sounds out there and I love all of them, and I feel like it's all expresses like a different piece of myself, and like I think people can relate to different parts of you, and that's why you have like different friend groups and everybody sees you differently, but it's still you and everything. But I picked Chicago Flood for this because I really wrote it as an intro song to the album.
Okay.
And it actually takes a melody from a song from my last band, my band Frat Mouse, that I am in and have been in since I was like 17, and it also mentions like the EP, and which is, I have this EP, Pale Moon, Pale Horse, and it was made on tape, and it's really dear to me because I made it with a bunch of friends of mine, and it was like a really interesting part of my life because first time I was recording on tape, and it taught me a lot about tape. And then even though I did the album on Pro Tools, I try to take as much of a tape mentality as you could, because when you're on tape you can comp, but you can't comp well, or at least I can't, because I'm not great with the razor blade. And we're doing cassette tape, so you can't even cut it. But it's like we were you just have to do everything. Like, you have to get good takes, and you have to have good parts, and you have to sing well, and like, you can't just, there's not a million plugins, like there's like one EQ.
Yeah.
So when I was making the album, I did everything like just with a channel stripper and like a compressor, which just is like the most basic plugins you can do.
Yeah.
And I like Chicago Flood because I like mention Pale Moon, Pale Horse and everything, and I mention all these different things, and I talk about my brother a lot, which I like. I just think it like sets the scene on, I think there's a lot of like really personal Easter eggs, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I think when I listen to it, it really makes me, it feels representative of like what I'm doing right now. Like, it's sort of like an intro into like this thing, and like I think it ties together kind of an eclectic back catalog.
Yeah.
And so what I'm trying to do now.
Yeah, I love that. I'm trying to word this correctly. I feel like a theme that I'm noticing with your intention is like something that we lose in a lot of modern music is like the almost anthology you kind of get in old like 60s and 70s music, where like it's a story of you, and it like mentions things from the past of your musicianship, but also your brother, and like analog recording and things that are important to you, and just like true like storytelling and musicianship. So that's a very cool thing to especially just be like an intro to the album as well.
I want it to be like that for sure. I think that at the end of the day, and I think that even though this is maybe selfish, but I don't really think so, because I think it's sort of part of the job, but like I really do just make it for myself, and it helps me figure out my own life, and like it's almost like a journal kind of thing, and I think it definitely helps me also like portion out my life into different like time periods, because I think like for me it's really like satisfying to listen to the old music every once in a while and like see how much better the new stuff sounds, despite not really getting that much more gear, because I'm like, this is just something that I've worked on and gotten better at, and that's really satisfying. And so and the writing thing, I think that a lot of the times I'm writing myself out of holes that I put myself in when I was like 18, because I wrote something when I was 18 that I either don't agree with now, or I want to expand on it, and I feel like I can't leave it hanging. Like a lot of the time, I think for me, I'm just trying to build this thing where I can look at it and be like, okay, that is how I feel, like it's done. But I'm like 7 records in and I haven't even gotten close, so I don't know if I'm ever going to get there, but
I think so.
That's the goal, I think, honestly.
Forward progress is still progress.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Fun. It's fun for sure.
What does the writing process usually look like for you?
Well, I write everything in like a journal or something, like with a pen. I don't usually type stuff. I don't know, or like I use my phone sometimes to like notes out. I don't know. I like to write on an acoustic guitar. I'd say that's maybe the 3 line. Like I write a lot on the guitar. I love playing the guitar. I play it all the time. It's like my favorite thing ever. If I could have one thing, it'd be an acoustic guitar for sure.
Agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Aren't they great? I mean, like,
just
dude,
the best.
It's great.
I'm like not very good at guitar, and I love that about my life right now, because I'm finding new things on it.
That's
like,
good.
I started on piano, and I don't like playing piano right now because I feel like I know a little too much, which sounds pretentious, but like,
I know what you mean.
Just like theory wise. Yeah. So guitar right now is like awesome. Yeah. Even frustrating though. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what's good about it. You know, it's like, and you can get stuff out of it where you're just following your ear, which is really like the goal. Like as you continue to learn more, and I'm sure you experience this on the piano where you already know a lot, where it's like you're just trying to get back to following your ear, even though you have all this context now, right? And things that people have done before and everything. Because music theory is just like naming things that people have done before, and I think that that's really helpful because it can get you out of binds. Like if you're like, oh, like I have this verse in this chorus, but I don't know what to do for this bridge. Like you can now have options of like potentially what other people have done in the past, and then that can help you. But I think you should be focusing on, or I think it's best personally to focus on what feels the most natural. Like you just like this sound kind of thing. Yeah. Like when you turn on like a distortion pedal, like it just feels really good every time for me. Totally. So I like to like, it's just that kind of thing. Like the really visceral thing. Like I think that like, you know, like when I was a kid, I think a lot of kids feel this way, like the drums are like the best instrument ever because it's like unbelievably visceral. Yeah. You're not going to like escape what that feeling is. It's sort of just supernatural. I think that if you can get to that on all the different instruments, it's good. But I have a really good friend who's like a super good trained bass player. Named this kid Ronan, who I love dearly. Shout out Ronan. And he started playing the guitar. He didn't play the guitar at all, but he obviously had really amazing bass chops, but he didn't know like what all the relationships on all like the higher strings are on the guitar. And he ended up playing it in like a super interesting way because he's like a super great musician, but he doesn't know this instrument. So he's making up these things and just making sounds that he thinks are cool.
That's sick to me.
It was sick.
I love people who are like, they just kind of skip over like the theory aspect of things and they're like, no, I'm just going to play it like this, even though that's like not the fingering that like a trained professional would use. And they usually do it in such a cool way that
It's
gets
so cool.
Yeah, a cooler sound. But I'm curious, like, you write these interesting stories. Do you like go into writing a song like knowing what you're going to talk about? Or is it just like something that sort of spills out of you, or like it's a journal entry? Like, where does it come from?
Sometimes I write just as like a practice.
Sure.
So I'll just sit down and just write like stupid garbage, you know, even like funny things. Like, I don't know what I'm going to write. And you're just like writing shit down because you're like just trying to do it.
Totally.
And then sometimes you get ideas from that. Like you write something down and it's just like, it's from your subconscious, and then you look at it and then you're able to consciously like put something else onto that. And then maybe you can make, I've written a bunch of songs like that where you just, it comes out of like a free like stream of consciousness kind of thing. But a lot of the times I write stuff out of frustration and anger. Like a lot of the record was honestly written out of feeling completely helpless and feeling like you can't, like seeing something on the news that makes you so angry and you're just like, I'm so annoyed that I can't believe this person just said that. That is so ridiculous. And then you like write a song about it. So sometimes it's that. And then sometimes it's like somebody says something and you're like, oh, that's such a cool, like that just made me think of all this other stuff. I got to go like write this down and stuff. So honestly, I think a bunch of ways. I think but definitely I think so much of the meat is figured out when you're writing it. Like at least for me, like I'll be writing it and then the second verse I'll like figure out what the chorus should be kind of thing, because you're like, oh, like this is what I'm writing about. I write, and I know a lot of people feel this way, and I think this is like so amazing and like such a fun thing to think about, but it's like so many times you also write a song and you don't even know at all what it's about, and then you realize what it's about later. And I think that that's when you're writing from like just your subconscious, and I think that's usually a good place to be, because it's like
totally
just super pure. And you oftentimes, if you just, I really try to just get out of the way a lot of the time. It sort of feels like you can like barely steer the ship, but like you're not the captain kind of thing. Like you can like tell it like I really want to write a song that's like a story song or whatever, but then what it actually ends up being like is largely out of your control, at least for me.
I love those types of songs. I feel like they are the ones that end up meaning the most because it like ends up coming out authentically. Because I don't know, there's like a separation of self that happens when you're like not really filtering yourself, because you're not trying to achieve some like concrete meaning or like getting to like a title line or like a hook or something that you had pre-written. Like it just is what you wanted to say, and then you look back and someone's like, oh my God, love the mean, like I really relate to that, and you're like, oh. It
can be crazy like that. Yeah. And I've been thinking about, this is like a sort of recent thing that I've been trying to really think about a lot and keep in my mind, because I think it's really important, and it's something that I've run into before, and it goes back to trying really hard to be honest. Like sometimes you're writing for your project, like, and I don't think that's good necessarily. I mean, sometimes it can be, but sometimes I'm like after I made the record, I was like, okay, I made this record, like what would the second record sound like? Bad. What do I want to say right now? You know what I mean? Like, what do I feel like? What do I think is cool? What is exciting? Like those are the questions you should ask yourself. I think sometimes I get caught like writing for an idea of something, like, and I think that obviously that's part of like steering the ship a little bit. Like you can sort of do some of that, but I think you should largely leave it up to like what is just like super exciting in that moment, and what makes you feel good, and like what makes you laugh when you think about it. Like oftentimes you'll have an idea and you'll just, or at least I will, and I'll like just start laughing about it. And I'm like, this is so funny. Like this would be so fun. Yeah. And that's the shit where it's like real excitement, where you're like, I got to do this. It'll be really fun. Right.
And I think like those collections of songs end up having a through line anyways that you didn't need to like, I don't know, make up.
If you're being that's the trick of it all, honestly. If you're being super honest the whole time, it's going to be cohesive. At least for me, if you're making it within like a kind of short period of time, like I only have so much to say at a certain time, and usually, I mean, you can make records out of it, but it's like it's not like you're gonna change into some new person after 3 weeks of writing. Like, if you're really getting down to who you are and like what you really love, and you're unburdened by like what other people are gonna think or what you're trying to do or trying to be in too much of control, like if you just surrender to the whole thing and like let it be, it will probably be cohesive. And if it's not, then it shouldn't be. Like if you're feeling that eclectic, then you should leave it eclectic. Like then it's cool to just do that. So
right. And I talk about it all the time on here, and I'm like, I just don't think that the sound or like the genre has to sound the same on every song, because it's it's you singing and it's your voice and you wrote it. So if people like you, they're going to like the songs. Like, I don't know. We just like forgot that logic at some point.
I think it just is like a thing. I mean, think about like well, there's a couple things about this. I think that the Instagram thing in our culture and everything, like some people are like very honest on Instagram. It's really cool.
Yeah.
A lot of people are putting up a veil that they want to be or they think other people want them to be. And that's what it is. And I think that when you're making music, it's harder to do that.
Totally.
Even somebody like Chapel Roan, who I love, like she always says like it's a character, right? Like she's not Chapel Roan all the time.
Yeah.
But it's an honest character. Like that is an honest feeling. You know what I mean? Like
100%.
She clearly is. That's like a very honest part of her. Maybe it's not all of her, but that's coming from an honest place. And I think that like it's not always that you have to be, because I've always been like my like brand or whatever, like I don't think about my brand. I just try to be like super honest all the time, so that way it's consistent, because it's like if there's something that I would do, then I'll do it, and then that makes it so that everything that I do is something that I would do, which therefore like makes a brand, because you're like just being yourself.
Yes.
But I think that the other way to do it is like the Chapel Roan approach, where you're like isolating a part of yourself that is like that you really feel is passionate, and you want to like strip it down and get to that, and then putting that on blast and having that be like your project. Like that's also super honest. So there's a million ways to do it, but I think that if it's coming from like a real place inside you, then it's like, then you're going to be, because even if it's not successful, you're going to like it, because you're like, well, this is just who I am, dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
social media marketers are like quaking right now after hearing that. That's like,
oh my God, dude, have you seen those things? It's like analyzing why the Dare is going to be super famous.
Guys, I have seen them.
Those make me laugh.
It's just, I don't know. There's such like a dissonance between.
You need a haircut. That's what they say.
Yeah.
A special haircut. Once you get your iconic haircut, then
a suit and a tie, a costume. Yeah. I don't know. The brands thing is really crazy because they're not wrong, but I think you are correct in the sense that like you are your brand, and we should stop like trying to find the brand and just hone in on what makes you and like,
there's
capitalizing
skill in like
on that.
Conveying it. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes I'm living a life where like I'm actually just writing songs all the time and like going to the beach in my truck alone and being all like thinking about all this shit and like all this stuff. And sometimes I'm just playing Rocket League with my manager for like a week, and we're doing nothing but playing video games and like drinking coffee and like doing just whatever bullshit. And it's like, it's not that you have to always show every single party. Like there's a little bit of tact in like, because I think the thing is that you're trying to do is like translate what you're trying to say and have it translate clearly. And like if I just talked at you and like said every single thing that pops in my head for like an hour, I might say somewhere in there everything I want to say, but it's not gonna make sense.
Totally.
So it's like there's something about like making sure you're being clear. And that's super important now because everything's out of context and nobody's clear about anything, and all the communication is like out the window. Mm-hmm. But there's something about trying to be clear, but I think you still have to start with an honest message. So
yeah, I love that. That's very authentic. And that brings me to our last course.
Sweet.
Where I want to know the song that sort of maybe not means the most to you, but one you're especially excited about on this album, one that we haven't heard yet for our dessert course.
Well, I think I'm going to go for my dessert. I think I'm going to go with my song Bloodline.
Okay.
When I was making the record, I started it, like, I think I made What's on Your Mind and one of the other ones, and I was really enjoying making it, and I, like, sent it to my dad, and I was like, this is really fun, like, I found this new way to do this, I think it's going to be an album or something, because I'd made these two songs that were kind of similar, and I was like, I think this is really, like, a fun process, and I wanted to make it, and I made a couple more, and I kept on sending them to him, and he was like, look, dude, like, these are probably the best songs you've made. Like these are really good, right? So like make sure you're going to say something that you mean and it's like clear. Because if you're going to go through this whole thing like just to look sick on Instagram, like stop. Like you make sure you're just going to like just don't just make it like fluff. And then I wrote this song, and I think that after he said that, I was like, that's a really good point. Like I just do think that like, I mean, everybody wants to look sick on Instagram, but like, what does that really get you? Like, for what? You know what I mean? Why? And I think that like, if you say something that you really mean, and that's a good why. And so I wrote this song Bloodline, and I think that the prompt is like, if I was going to say one thing to everybody. If I was like going to get up on my box for a second and hear you, like this is what I have to say for a second,
right,
then that would be what it would be. And I think that will definitely change. It's already changed. Like if I was going to do that today, it'd be different. But just in that moment, that was what I wanted to say. And I think that like, I'm really proud of that, honestly. Mm-hmm. So I would say that one's going to come out with the record. There's no like
that's
single,
awesome.
But yeah.
What is the like message that you're trying to say with it?
Well, the first line is like protect your head, you know? Mm-hmm. I think that I wanted to start, I mean, the song's all about like, you know, the Tower of Babel.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like we're in one of those. Like we've built this whole AI thing and we've built all these internet things and now we don't understand each other because there's all these like layers and you see everything through all these screens and stuff. And it's like, we're suddenly not speaking the same language. Like if you talk to somebody on the opposite political side, you might agree on like nothing but you actually might agree on a lot. But when you're talking to them, you might not agree. You might feel like you can't even speak the same language. So I think that like, that's kind of what I was trying to get at. And I think that, but the main message on top of that is to protect your head because I think that a lot of these things, a lot of the input now is really dangerous. Like
totally,
you're on your phone and you're just letting things pop up on you, and it's like these things are like, I understand that it's like really fun, and I do it too for sure.
Yeah,
I'm on the internet, of course, but it's like you should just really be careful and like understand that all this stuff is super unprecedented, and take care of yourself. And we live in a protect yourself at all times world. No one's going to save you. Like it's insane. And I think that trying to take care of yourself while also, you know, I mean, basically it's that. I don't know.
Yeah, no,
Protect
I get
yourself,
what you're
like,
saying. It's like the internet is really fun and awesome, and I think I learn a lot and I'm inspired a lot by it, but then I also like am fueled with things that give me the most anxiety. Like it's like once I see one thing and I'm like, oh my God, I never want to see that again. Then I see like 20 more of that on my TikTok feed.
It's like, yeah, I mean, you just like, it's like a car crash, you can't look away kind of thing all the time. And I think they get people like that, like crazy on TikTok. Like suddenly you're getting just videos of people getting knocked out on the street because it's like, whoa. And then
you saw one and stayed for 2 seconds.
Yeah, and they're paying attention to how long you're watching something. It's like, also it's like, dude, I think TikTok is crazy. I don't know.
It is crazy.
I mean, have you ever done the implicit bias test?
I think a long time. Yeah.
I went to like a really progressive high school, and so we did like a lot of like social justice adjacent education, and we did this thing called an implicit bias test where it would like put like good words, then pictures of black people, or like bad words and pictures of white people, and then they would flip it, and you would like do your thing, and you try to see if you have like bias against a certain group of people that you don't even know about. And it reminds me of TikTok because they're doing the same thing. They're showing you something and seeing how fast it takes you to go to the next thing, and then they just figure out, like, you're not even telling them the information, and they're just learning everything about you because they're able to just like see what your brain likes and doesn't like. And even if you don't consciously like something, if it interests you enough to keep you on it longer than something else that's just completely boring to you, then they're going to keep showing it to you. So it's just completely insane, and it's a big game. And we're all getting played, I feel like. And even though it's like a worthy fight, like we were talking about, like the climate thing and everything and the culture war that's kind of going on and everything, it's like all that is worthy to fight for. But at the end of the day, your life is your one life, and you need to protect yourself, because if you go, I also think people get radicalized by these things. So it's like making sure you're still living in the real world as much as you can is really important, I think. And like talking to real people as much as you can from all different opinions and stuff is really the best way to do it, I think. So
participating enough so that you're not like misinformed about all of it, but also not participating so much that it's
for sure. I'm definitely not for checking out. Yeah, like you can't just because I have friends who are like, I don't care, I don't watch the news, I don't do anything. It's like, well, that's not helpful.
That's not the right answer.
That's not helpful, but I do think it's worth realizing that this stuff is really dangerous.
I think you're contributing in a really awesome way.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, music is like, I think, a really comfortable way for people to latch onto ideas and like be invited into like a new way of thinking. And like you said, it's like they might not even know what they're singing about in Black Train, and then they might read the lyrics. And all of a sudden
I try to write a lot about humanity. Like a lot of it is just like that's why I like Joel Roberts a lot, is because I think that's something that we can all like agree is like a very human situation. Like that's something that a lot of us would do, despite not being maybe like, I just think a lot of the times I'm writing about stuff that we can all agree on. And I think finding things that we can all agree on is really important. And then obviously I write things that we don't all agree on, because that's kind of where the most important stuff is. But I think that, like, I mean, at the end of the day, all of us singing along to something that's like generally like positive and like shows like care for other humans and stuff, and like has a sense of togetherness is like gotta be a good thing. But I definitely struggle with that a lot, because I'm like, I get to make all this music, and that's a huge like privilege and all this stuff. And I think that it's like, I want to make sure that I'm doing a good job of at least being like responsible with it. And there's a lot that comes to, and I don't really know yet how best to do that. But I think that I'm really trying to like make it like
thinking
like
about it and being aware of it is half the battle, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, I hope so.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I have 3 final questions for you. I would love to know. These are like such light questions in comparison to everything we've talked about.
Sweet.
If your music was a candle, what would it smell like?
That's such a good question. I don't know.
Also, does this album have a name yet? Has it been announced?
Yeah, it's called American Recordings.
Okay, awesome. That's very Bruce Springsteen of you.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I love the boss. But the candle thing, I'm really thinking about. I don't know. I like a pine candle. It's kind of basic, but
I see that
those
for
are really
you.
nice. I also like those fall candles. I love a fall candle. Those
A
are
little
good.
apple spice.
Yeah,
going
like
on
the
in there.
classic, like, oh, it's October, like, I have my pumpkin candle, and you're like,
My pumpkin brulee candle.
yeah, whatever. Yeah, those are good. So
I'm down. Yeah. I'd also love to know what your favorite sound is right now. Like a life sound, not like a music sound.
no, for sure.
For sure.
That's so hard, dude. That's really hard. That's such a good question. I love thinking about stuff like that.
Yeah.
I record a lot of sounds and stuff. I think it's always really fun.
My least favorite sound right now is my roommate's cat this morning knocked over a whole bag of bird seed.
Ooh, that's a good
So
one.
hearing that at 4 o'clock in the morning was really awesome for me.
I love walking on gravel.
That's a good one.
Great sound. I mean, ocean classic.
Classic.
There's a lot of really sick ones though. Like skipping a rock is really good.
Yeah. That's one you have to work for too.
You do have to work for that one, yeah. And then I don't know, like, I think starting a car is pretty amazing, because you're like, fuck, this is crazy. Every single time I start a car, I'm like, damn.
Knowing what goes into it too.
Dude, insane technological marvel. It's
Yeah.
always amazing. My least favorite sound, my freaking phone buzzing. I want to not have a phone. You can't survive, I don't think, in Los Angeles in 2025 without a phone. But, I mean, you can, but it's like,
I
it's
don't know how
hard
you'd get
to get away
anywhere,
from
yeah.
it, but it's like, that would be ideal. That's like real luxury. Honestly, I bet that's what they do. I bet super rich celebrities and stuff just don't have a phone.
Probably. It's probably safer for them.
Yeah, and it's just nice.
Yeah.
You don't have to do, like, you know what I mean?
Not have to sign into your own
That's
Instagram.
a real luxury.
Yeah, that sounds
You don't
great.
have to text. You don't have to call, text.
Oh, they find you if they need you.
Dude, yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay, well, my very last question is, who are your ones to watch? Who are you listening to that I should also be listening to?
I really like this band Pluie.
Okay.
I've been talking about Pluie this week because they had this song called Scratch, and they have a A and a B side, Scratch and Toothbrush. I think it's called Toothbrush or Toothpaste.
Cool.
I think it's Toothbrush though. And they're great. I love the song Scratch. I've been listening to it in my car everywhere I go.
Sick.
I also like, there's an artist called Superfan. I think they live in New York.
Superfan.
Yeah. Great.
76 Germany.
Yeah, for sure. Do you hear the new record?
I don't think so.
I didn't see any thing about it, but then I saw it on Spotify.
Which is dope.
I was like, this is awesome. Yeah, it's really cool and really good. So yeah, I would say those two.
Okay. Awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is super fun.
Yeah, and congrats on the release of Chicago Flood and What's on Your Mind tonight.
Yes.
Which is dope. January 21st. I did not know that was the date today, so amazing. Well, once again, this is Ones to Watch Chef's Choice. I'm Abby Kenna, and this is Truman Sinclair. Yay.
Thank you.